as I understand it, um, getting rid of Iran is part of expanding American hegemony, and Iran is in the way, like Iraq and Gaddafi and Syria. And so Iran is in the crosshairs, and it's only a question of when and how. But Iran is not, it cannot be tolerated because it's not an American puppet state. And therefore it will be removed. It's just when. Of course, the Israelis are very keen on removing Iran, just as they are on removing Syria, because Israel wants the water resources of southern Lebanon. It's twice sent in the Israeli army to seize southern Lebanon and essentially annex it for the water resources, for the river there. And twice Hezbollah drove out the Israeli army. Well, Hezbollah suppliers are in Syria and Iran. And therefore, if you can overturn the governments in Syria and Iran and install some American-Israeli puppets, or you simply leave the countries in turmoil, fighting with the different factions fighting each other as they continue to do in Iraq. Then you've disrupted the ability for Hezbollah to be supplied, and Israel can move in and acquire southern Lebanon. So these two programs, the Israeli desire to annex southern Lebanon and American neoconservative desire for world hegemony, have very dire implications for Iran, just as they have currently for Syria, and had for Iraq, and had for Gaddafi, and for Afghanistan. Now, Afghanistan has been a much less successful venture for the Americans, but I don't think anyone ever had success against the Afghans. They seem to just be indomitable. So, I think the prospects for the Iranians are good.
The U.S. has made unilateral sanctions against Iran. Are these a wise act chosen by the U.S. government?
Well, for its purpose, I mean, the sanctions are illegal. They're essentially an act of war. It's like a blockade. I mean, they pretend there's a difference between sanctions and a blockade, but it's a way of getting the world used to the demonization of Iran. See, if you just go up and attack them, then everybody says, "Oh, why did you do that?" So you put sanctions, and then you increase the sanctions, and and Washington claims that, well, the sanctions will encourage the Greens and the progressives and the secular members of Iranian society that want to overthrow the religious autocracy, and that therefore we are helping democracy in Iran. That's the kind of argument they'll give you, or some of them. But in fact, the purpose of the sanctions is part of the demonization. And it also establishes that, look, we tried everything with the Iranians. We tried to negotiate. We put sanctions, and we're going to war only as the last resort. Nothing else worked. So that's also part of it. So there's no other way to look at sanctions.
Despite the U.S. claims, the IAEA and other parties have never presented any clear evidence that Iran is pursuing a nuclear bomb. Do you really believe that Iran's nuclear program has military aims?
Not without evidence. It's not just the reports of the International Atomic Energy Agency inspectors. It's also the conclusion of the United States National Intelligence Estimate. That is, the that is the intelligence of the estimate of the CIA and all 16 U.S. intelligence agencies, including the Defense Intelligence Agency. So without any real evidence of the Iranian nuclear weapons program, the assertion is like the assertion that Iraq had weapons of mass destruction. The weapons inspectors in Iraq said, no, they don't, but it didn't do any good. The government didn't hear them. And it's really quite amazing that the world press continues to treat with respect claims from Washington and its NATO puppets and from Israel that the Iranians are making a nuclear weapon, despite the CIA denial and despite the International Atomic Energy Agency's reports. So, you know, how can you live in a world where two-bit politicians who know nothing can stand up and lie through their teeth when the knowledgeable agencies contradict them? And the media never bothers to say, well, Mr. President, how can you say this? Or Mr. Prime Minister, how can you say this? These are, so it shows the total unmitigated corruption of Western political life and the Western media. They're simply totally unreliable. You can't believe a word that's in the newspapers or on the television or comes out of the mouths of the politicians. They're all lies, part of an agenda. And they achieve the agenda by propagandizing everyone.
The non-aligned movement, which recently had a summit in Tehran and elected Iran as its head, repeatedly called for a nuclear-free world. They specifically urged the UN to put pressure on Israel to join the NPT. Why is the US and the UN never asking Israel to give up its nuclear weapons and join the NPT?
Well, the Israeli nuclear weapons are not officially acknowledged. Israel doesn't acknowledge that they have them, and the United States government doesn't acknowledge it. Now, numerous American experts and former intelligence officials and so on who know they have them will acknowledge it, but it's not an official acknowledgement by the United States government. So they pretend that these weapons aren't really there. And moreover, it's never does the United States do something that the Israelis don't want. So we recently experienced the enormous intervention in the United States presidential election by the Prime Minister of Israel, who simply said that if Obama doesn't do what he wants and give a red line for attacking Iran, then he's going to see Obama lose. So there you have it. It's funny, isn't it, that the superpower is Israel's puppet.
So many people are slow to accept this.
Yes, and people can't have a hard time accepting reality. They prefer all their delusions and illusions. They would rather believe that Iran is evil than that their own government is lying to them. It's much easier to believe some foreign country, you don't even know where it is, that this is a demon country. That's easier to believe than to say, is my government lying to me?
It's having the carpet pulled out from under your feet. The NAM, the non-aligned movement countries, which are 2/3 of the UN members, criticize the structure of the UN, especially the unjust system of the UNSC and its right to a veto. Do you believe that the UN needs a big reform and that the right of a veto is inherently unjust?
Yes, but it's not going to happen. The UN was set up to serve the United States and the Western powers. It wasn't set up to do what so many of the members of the weaker states pretend. The best thing that could happen would be that all the other countries just stop going. I mean, why should they go? Does it only serves Western interest. Look at the resolution that was passed for a no-fly zone on Libya. I, you know, and of course, even when the UN General Assembly will, even when they pass a resolution against Israel, it gets vetoed by the United States. So, as far as I can tell, there's no country's interest is served by the UN except the United States and its NATO puppets. Now, of course, China and Russia have vetoes. So, as they catch on to the mendacity of the Western alliance, they can use their vetoes to block its total use by Washington. But other than that, I can't really see why people bother to go, because their participation gives legitimacy